For you, the listeners of My JavaScript Story, Loot Crate is offering an opportunity to save 10% on any new subscription at lootcrate.com. Just enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings. Loot Crate is one of my favorite things. Every month I get a box in the mail, costs less than $20, and it comes with all kinds of goodies. I have stuff from, just looking at my shelf, Batman, Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and much, much more. So if you're a geek, a gamer, anything like that, and you want cool stuff to put around your office, cool t-shirts, comic books, etc., then definitely check out Loot Crate. To save 10% on your new subscription, go to lootcrate.com/Ruby. Again, that's lootcrate.com/Ruby to save 10% on any new subscription. Enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings. Hey everybody, and welcome to another My JavaScript Story. In case you're wondering, or on the Angular feed, this is also going to go on to My Angular Story, so you are in the right place. This week we're talking to Jeff Cross. Jeff, do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Now, we've had you on both shows, I believe, both JavaScript Jabber and Adventures in Angular.
Yeah, I think so.
And yeah, just interesting stuff. You've been involved in Angular for a while, and I think that's how we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to try and capture your story and let people know, how you got into all of this. And what I try and do is kind of paint a picture for people so that they can feel like, oh, well, if I have something in common with Jeff, then I can get to where he is, or, I have some hope of learning to program as well as he does, as well as just put a human face on programming. I think a lot of times we get people on, we talk about technology for an hour, and then we jump off. And I don't think people realize, these are people. They have families, they have lives, they have friends.
Mm-hmm.
They go out and get a beer or coffee with people, and they're humans as well. So yeah, all of that in 45 minutes. You ready?
All right, let's go. I think people may just be disappointed. I'm not really much of a human. I don't remember the last time I went out and actually did anything fun, but we'll give it a try.
You have kids, kind of.
Yeah,
I get that. But anyway, do you want to just give a brief introduction before we get going too far?
Sure. So I'm Jeff Cross. I've been on the Angular team I guess technically now I'm like former Angular team. I still like to consider myself part of the Angular team, but I've been working on Angular for the past 5 years now. 4 years at Google on the Angular team, and for the past year have been working at Nrwl, which Victor Safkin and I co-founded at the end of 2016. And so that's where most people would know me from the different parts of Angular I helped work on.
Cool. Well, before we get to Angular, let's start at the very beginning and get your story on how you got into programming.
Sure. Should I just start from the start? I was born in the 80s. I don't consider myself a millennial, though. But actually, I'll skip ahead a little bit.
I was born in the 70s, so I'll call you a baby.
Yeah, you're like, so I'm on the edge of millennial, so I tried not to group myself in with millennial, because unless it's beneficial, if I'm hanging out with other millennials, then I'll be like, yeah, I'm totally one of you. So I got started in programming when I think I was about 12 years old, and my mom was an intranet webmaster for a music distributor called BMG, which I don't know if they're still around. Their business really suffered when the internet happened. And
I remember ordering like 11 CDs for $2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a lot of their business. So yeah, they made a lot of, they had these clubs that you would, they and Columbia House were the big ones who did this, where you would send in like a dime and they'd be like, okay, your first CD is only a dime. And then the fine print is, we'll charge you $50 a month for more CDs for perpetuity, and good luck canceling it. So that's how I made my living, was through scamming people out of their dimes and their follow-up subscriptions. But actually, I don't think it was quite that bad. But my mom was the internet master, I think, just for one of the divisions. I don't know if the whole company, but so she had I don't know how she ended up doing that role, because she didn't have really a background in technology, but she had done some design and some like making newsletters and things like that. So somehow ended up being the internet webmaster, which I think was a pretty content heavy position. but then as part of that, she had to learn how to do HTML, some web development. And so she taught me and my siblings things like using FrontPage to make websites and how to edit the source to change the layout. And, I don't think CSS was really a thing yet. And so it was all tables and throw some images in there, make some borders, like make some interesting things. And so that's really kind of how I got into it to start with.
Boy, you're taking me back.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention any of the other editors. Like maybe you use this one, but I remember Netscape Navigator used to have a built-in editor that I used for. I forget what that was called, but they had like this cool WYSIWYG editor that you could also edit things with, and then Dreamweaver and Go Live became the more preferred tools. Which I guess Go Live eventually went away, right, in favor of Dreamweaver. I think it's still a thing.
I don't remember, honestly. Most of my stuff was on GeoCities, and
oh yeah,
I would just type right into the browser.
Yeah, I used to have a GeoCities. That was my first playground. I just had a GeoCities page that had a bunch of Gifs on it and sound bites, and like I would find random sound clips of Toy Story or Seinfeld or I don't remember. Quotes I didn't even know the context of, but were cool sound bites, and would throw them on the page. Which I tried to find my old GeoCities page the other day on archives, but couldn't. Apparently, wasn't worth saving or archiving, so haven't been successful.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, if I ever find it, I'll let you know.
Awesome.
I did have a cool GIF that I recorded myself saying "Welcome to my website," and then I had a GIF that was just like really janky, had my mouth moving up and down as if it was talking, which would have been good to preserve.
That is awesome. Nice. So how did you get into JavaScript then?
I started off really focused on design, and for a lot of years I was more of a web designer, and I spent most of my time in Photoshop coming up with website designs for friends and my church youth group and whoever would let me work on a website for them. I was in a band with some friends, and so I did like 10 websites for that band. But it was mostly focused on design, and I didn't really get too much dynamic stuff. But as I started getting more into Flash, it was a nice bridge. And I hear this story from a lot of people that Flash is kind of the way that got into programming from design. So when I got into Flash, and it was like you could make these amazing animations, and like you could make nice intros and everything without doing anything programmatic. But when I started realizing that you could actually add these hooks, like you could actually run some scripts on keyframes or make it more interactive, then that's when I started experimenting with ActionScript back in the ActionScript 1 or 2 days, 1.0, 2.0. And I had, up to that point, I had always seen programming as this thing that was kind of not something I could learn, or it was too hard, and like I was a designer, I should stick with design. But I started experimenting and just like copy pasting scripts from I don't know what the Stack Overflow was back then, but I would just Google things and find scripts to paste and slowly kind of figure it out. And that was my first foray into actual programming. And then I joined an agency that was really big into Flash. And this was like years later when I was in my 20s. And this was an agency in Phoenix called TerraLever. They had some of the best Flash people in the business. And ActionScript 3 was a thing then. And I started to see like it was more object oriented. That's when they had classes, interfaces, more complex patterns, just really interesting programming you could do, where it wasn't just throw a script on a keyframe and do something, but you could actually build an application in ActionScript that is bound to these movie clips and screens and stages. And so I learned. So there I started learning from the people I was working with some of the cooler ideas of programming. That was kind of my first foray into object-oriented programming, and started. So that was a really good learning time. So I was, helping make stuff for clients and learning alongside some great people, and had like my friend Richie, who I've worked with a lot since then, was working there, and he really helped explain a lot of things and it showed me the ropes, so to speak. And that's when I started getting more into programming in general. And then around 2009, when iPhone made it clear that Flash wasn't going to be a target for the iPhone, I started looking more to JavaScript, which I had done some to that point. But it was at that point I joined another company called Unicon in the Phoenix area, and started working on an Accelerator Titanium project, which is there are things like it now, but it was one of the first JavaScript runtimes for mobile, where you could actually have native mobile elements where you could have JavaScript that's driving it. And so I helped build an open source university portal that worked with this existing project called uPortal. And I was working alongside a friend named Jen Borey, who she actually went to Google just before I did, and she and I continue to collaborate because she's working on the Google Cloud Platform now, which is using Angular. But she was another big step in helping me, because she's a really sharp programmer, more of a computer science background, and a really nice person otherwise. And so I was thrown into this project, basically leading this project with a decent amount of Flash and ActionScript experience at this point, but still kind of filling out JavaScript. And so she was really helpful in helping me to kind of explore, build this thing, when we worked on this thing together. And that was basically when I was fully converted to JavaScript and really haven't gone back to Flash since.
That's interesting. And it's funny, I mean, you're telling this story, and I talked to Merritt Christensen earlier today for this same podcast, and his story parallels yours quite a bit. You know, he came to JavaScript sooner than Steve Jobs killed Flash, but still, you know, it's funny to me how many people come up through, I did design, I did some basic stuff, went through Flash, and then, they moved into, the Angulars and Reacts and Views and Backbones and Knockouts and things like that to try and find ways to do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Backbone was, I was really excited about that when it came out. That was one of the first web MVC projects that I'd done. And it was like, whoa, this is pretty cool how like it was encapsulation when encapsulation didn't really exist in any other libraries. Like jQuery, was what I had done to that point, which was just like toss it anywhere, grab whatever you want to, but the DOM is your playground.
Yep. Yeah, the infamous jQuery spaghetti. But it was such a powerful tool that, we didn't have anything like it when it came out. I mean, there were other things, I guess, like it, but it made a lot of those things much more possible and much more consistent across the web, which made it really nice.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't really have to think too much about different browsers. It's such a good job. Yeah, jQuery is a really good on-ramp for a lot of JavaScript developers.
Yeah. So how do you go from doing JavaScript at Google to Angular?
So when I was working at Unicon on this mobile thing that I was talking about, I was starting to get more into Node programming. So that because if you're just doing client side, you're pretty limited on the kind of things you can develop. And I had been experimenting with building some personal applications, and I'd used like Google App Engine and Python, and then had moved into Node. But as part of that, I was realizing that there were a lot of things, like setting up APIs was really tedious, and setting up anything meaningful on the back end required a lot of ceremony to get it right. Even with frameworks like Express, like if you just want to have a JSON endpoint, you want some simple CRUD operations, it still was a lot of thinking you had to do. And so I started talking with my friend Richie Martori, whom I had worked with at Terralever, about some thoughts I was having about creating a backend product or something backend project that would make a lot of this simpler. And so he and I prototyped this new project called Deployed, which was it's like the word deployed, but take away the last E. And we'd worked on it for a few months, just like on vacations or breaks. I would fly out where he was living in the Bay Area before I lived here. And he and I would hack on it and really started to see a lot of potential in this. And so we decided to quit our jobs and start Deployed as a company and focus on building this open source platform, which was one of the first backends as a service before that was a thing. And so we started this company in 2011 or 2012, where we were basically, he and I and another guy who we'd work with part-time, Dallin Feldner, started working on this. And doing some consulting on the side where we would do some Node or JavaScript development for clients while also working on this open source platform that we were trying to make into a commercial product. And we worked on it for a year, and actually it got some pretty good traction. Like it was getting adopted even as tools like Firebase, which I'm now friends with the founders, but at the time didn't know them, and tools like Parse, and there was another one called StackMob, and there was a few who entered the space around the same time. So it wasn't an original idea at all. It was like something obvious in the evolution of web products. But so we worked on that for a year, and we had gotten traction, but really hadn't found commercial viability or had funding or anything. So we were this bootstrap company, and around the end of the year, I had told my wife, like, either we hit certain revenue milestones or have funding, or I'll quit the company and move on to something else, because we had just had our first kid, and that was the only way I could talk her into letting me quit my stable job to start a company. So at the end of that year, it wasn't quite commercially viable or where we wanted, so we decided to move on and get real jobs. And so I had actually been talking with Brad Green from the Angular team at that point, because there were a lot of people who were using deployed with Angular applications and found it really interesting, and he found it interesting too. And so I'd met with him and said, hey, so probably going to be moving on. You think I could come work on the Angular team? And you know, Brad's pretty good at getting things together quickly if he'd like to. So he got some interviews for me, and I barely made it through, as far as I can tell, the Google interview process. It's really hard without a computer science background to get into Google. But I think I had enough other good things going for me that it made up for that. And so got in and joined the Angular team in 2013, early 2013, kind of when Angular it already had momentum, but it was pretty early on, and it's starting to get traction and to become what it is today.
So what kinds of things have you contributed to Angular? Like, what parts of the framework were you working on? Was it everything or just certain parts?
A lot of the first 2 years was a lot of AngularJS 1.x, just bug fixes, minor enhancements. Basically, it was, whatever needs to be worked on. Most of the team was in that mode where it was getting popular really fast. The community was growing really fast. There were all these little either developer experience issues or performance issues that we would just kind of take it as it came and improve what was there, maybe change the APIs a little bit, fix complex bugs, that kind of thing. So I'd say the first 2 years were a lot of that. And then in 2014, late 2014 and early 2015, I may be off by a year on some of these, but then we all started shifting gears towards Angular 2, as we called it at the time. And at that point, we gradually shifted folks from AngularJS, at least folks on the core team, we shifted from AngularJS to then focusing on Angular 2 one by one. And so as things like the initial compiler and data binding were ready to go, then I shifted over, started working on a lot of the data persistence side of things, like the HTTP library. I was the author of, and then I'm trying to think what other parts. So I was involved with a couple of other parts more as a ad hoc contributor, like some of the change detection, some of pipes design and implementation. I was a little bit involved with forms, but the main things I was working on was HTTP. And then down the road, more took over the mobile efforts on the team. So basically working with people outside of the Angular team and working on our own progressive web app story. Mm-hmm. So Alex Rickabaugh, Rob Wormald, a couple other contributors, and I spun off a team, the Angular mobile team, which I was the tech lead of. And we spent basically a year making the progressive web app story good with Angular, making sure the load time performance was good and helping to make it good by default. So focusing on like service worker caching, better minification, app shell, so that you can have a shell on the screen as soon as possible. And so that was a lot of where I ended up on the Angular team, was working on the mobile story, which was really exciting to be part of, and really exciting to see some of the fruits of that now in the community really embracing progressive web apps.
That's awesome. I just love all of the, we're going to work on this now. We like the progressive web apps, and just figuring it out, getting the people together, and just making it work.
Yeah, that was a great experience too, because it was a good opportunity for us to collaborate with the Chrome team more, which we had some light collaboration with before, but I think all of us would have liked to have had more. Like Polymer and Angular, there were more similarities that it would have been good to share some things on. But progressive web apps was a good thing that both of our teams cared a lot about, and so like Adi Osmani was really involved with our efforts and giving advice and us being able to reach out and get his input on things. And so it was a good thing to get the teams talking more, collaborating more, sharing more ideas and things like that.
Nice. Do you have any embarrassing stories about Brad? I just have to ask.
About Brad? No. I mean, Mishko's probably the most person I have embarrassing stories about.
Oh, good.
So, I'll give you one Mishko story. Like Brad, I don't know. He's just got this grace about him that he handles every situation well. I don't know that he's ever been embarrassed. But Mishko, so one time, so I've had a beard for the past, I don't know, decade or so, all the time. And my whole time on the Angular team, I'd had a beard. And one day, I think in 2015, I shaved my beard. Like my wife dared me to shave it. And so I shaved it. And then when I went to work, I printed myself a guest badge that said Frank Cross on it so that I would look like, so that I could, convince people I wasn't actually Jeff. And so I was standing at my desk with my guest badge on, and Mishko walked by my desk, and he did a double take and did his kind of confused Mishko look, and I made up some kind of voice, which I'm not going to try now, but I said, "Oh, I'm Jeff's brother Frank. Jeff's over in the kitchen making coffee," and Mishko kind of looked at me to decide if I was telling the truth or not. And then so he turned around and went to the kitchen to see if Jeff was actually there, and then came back and knew I had gotten him, which I had actually, there are a few people on the team who I think I got, but everyone was on the cusp. Like they kind of, I play a lot of jokes on the team. So everyone kind of knew that it was probably me, but they were being polite and didn't want to be mean to my brother if it really was my brother. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to bring that up.
Yeah, it's funny. Since the last Angular conference I've been to, I've grown a beard and I got some glasses. And so, yeah, it's funny. I've been walking through the conference center during the workshops the last day or two. And, people kind of look at me and then they look down at my badge and then you see their head jerk back up to look at my face again.
You're the podcast guy.
That's funny. That's a terrific story.
Yeah, that's a typical Mishko.
Yeah,
he's a fun guy, but he trusts people a little too much, I guess.
Yep.
Trust me too much anyway.
Yeah. So what is it like working on the Angular team? I mean, is there a way you can paint that picture, or is it just you kind of have to be there?
It's terrible. I'm just kidding. No, it was really exciting. That's certainly the period of my life where I grew the most as an engineer, because even though I'd been doing programming for a few years before joining the team, there was so much more that I learned just about general programming discipline and like good habits of good engineering, and a lot more than just how you write code, like how you approach problems, and how you solve those problems, how you do things more incrementally. You don't try to fix everything at once, like be really pragmatic. So it was, and like the people on the team, like the leads, like Igor and Mishko, that just have so much experience and they're so good to learn from. And then everyone else on the team has just different depths and different areas that you can really learn a lot from. And everyone's really approachable. In Google in general, I found that to be true, that if you have an interest in something that someone else is deep in, then they're happy to do lunch and talk about things with you and kind of share their ideas and answer questions, things like that. But even the maturity, other than engineering, like the leads of the team, Brad, Igor, Mishko, are just really mature people, and it becomes important when there are challenging times in the community, like when we had a lot of people upset when we when it became clear that we were rewriting Angular, and there was a lot of negativity in the community, and just the way they respond to attacks and negativity and things like that is just really shows the maturity that it's not emotional or aggressive. It's like, we want to be empathetic, we want to listen, we want to figure out how to make this right. We want to acknowledge that we could have done things better. And even like when it comes to other frameworks getting popular and then people making it into a framework war, the way they've handled those kinds of things is also just, it's really good to be part of a team who doesn't get caught up in those kinds of things and handles it in the right way. So I've learned a lot, both engineering wise and just general maturity from being on the team.
Makes sense. And that's something that I've admired as well. I see a lot of people trying to make it into a framework war, and yeah, they're pretty good about just, try them, see which one you want.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing that I'm curious about is Nrwl. So how did that get started?
So I deployed, and before Terralever, and like in that in between time, I'd actually done a lot of consulting. I ran a small web agency for about a decade, and then had worked in consulting companies the whole time up until Google. And as I was getting more the itch to get back into the getting out into the real world, like where people are using the framework and seeing. I just like this kind of talking with many teams, seeing their problems, solving those kinds of problems. I really liked it was an interesting challenge to be working on a framework, but it was too abstract for me to keep doing forever. And so I had been getting that itch to, get out, start another business, because I like being an entrepreneur, and to also be out there and see the real world and be touching real applications that are using Angular. And so, at the same time, Victor Safkin and I we had been friends on the team for some time, and he mentioned to me that he was planning to move back to Toronto, and as part of that would be leaving Google. And so he and I had kicked around the idea of working together, and then just one day said, okay, we need to decide. It's Angular 2 has just been released. If we're going to do it, now's the time to do it. So we decided right after Angular 2.0 final was done that we would leave and start a company focused on Angular and focused on helping teams upgrade to Angular, move to Angular, or just really do Angular in a way that scales to big enterprise teams, and to really leverage Angular to its most potential to help teams be effective and build applications at scale and all that good stuff.
Awesome. I love just the stories of people going out and creating something. And so, just seeing an opportunity and seeing that, you're going to get whatever it is that you want from it, so you just go out and create it. I mean, I think that's terrific.
Yeah, I'm sure you can relate to being an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah.
But it has been really exciting. I mean, we've got to work with a lot of great teams. We were almost up to 10 people now at the company. Still hiring. So we have a lot more demand than we can keep up with. So we're hiring at a pace that's not going to overwhelm us, but still growing the company, finding new ways to scale to help more customers. But it's been really exciting, and it's really exciting the group of people that we've got together, like some of the top brains in the Angular community and nicest people in the Angular community too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I've wound up either interviewing for this show or, having as guests on Adventures in Angular people from Nrwl. And it's just funny because it's like, oh, you're at Nrwl now too. And, you seem to be picking up, a lot of the big thinkers out there in the community, and just, digging into what they're doing. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, it's a nice cycle. I mean, the more interesting, cool people you hire, the more that other cool, interesting people want to join you. So, we're in a lucky spot, and want to keep that advantage. Yep.
So, what else are you working on these days? Is it mostly Nrwl, or do you have other projects in the works that you want to talk about?
So I'm completely focused on Nrwl. But we've got a lot of interesting things at Nrwl we've been working on. NX is the big project we launched last October. And that's basically our set of extensions. It's Nrwl extensions for Angular. And it's just a wrapper around Angular CLI that uses the schematics API from Angular CLI to make it easier to generate more idiomatic code. So like more opinionated code that like with state management, with routing, with a lot of things that that we recommend people do. We've made it easier to do by default with NX. And one big part of NX is how it organizes code differently than a standard Angular CLI project. So instead of in Angular CLI, you have a single application with a single source tree under the SRC directory. We have it where there are two top-level directories, one for apps and one for libs, the libraries. And an app is basically something that gets bundled and deployed. And a library is anything that is consumed by an app or consumed by other libraries. And as part of NX, we have linting rules that enforce that libraries have explicit public APIs that can't be circumvented. And so instead of having all your code jumbled in the same source tree, maybe in the same NG module, now you have these explicit libraries, like for your common components library, or maybe for certain parts of your state will be their own libraries. You have it where you can encapsulate these libraries, write focus tests for these libraries, and not export the bits of the library you don't want to be seeing outside of the library, and which makes it easier for teams to one, you have clear separation, better testability, clearer ownership of who owns which parts of your application, but also refactoring becomes much easier, which is a big challenge we've seen with the large teams that we've been working with. And so that's been a really exciting project, and we keep on evolving that. I think almost all of our customers have moved to it, and everyone has, call me biased, but everyone loves it. At least my experience, even with some of its warts, like there's still some things that are awkward with its relationship to Angular CLI, just like NPM and node module resolution, like some weird things there. But even so, we've just seen lots of positive feedback for it, and we're really excited about that. And we've got some other things we've been working on too. Like we just released our first online training course called, the portal is called Angular Enterprise Playbook at angularplaybook.com. And the first course is an in-depth course on how to make use of the NX workspace, and it's free. And that's something that we're going to keep investing in, putting more content out there. Basically taking the things we've seen work with the teams that we work with, trying to make it more accessible to everyone in the community.
Nice. We should have you on Adventures in Angular to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have some more courses published soon. So definitely will be some interesting things to talk about.
Nice. All right. Well, the last portion of the show is picks.
Do you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere. Available from any device on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says "Pay me now." And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Are there things you want to shout out about?
There was I had one that came to mind because I was looking at the email this morning. I was like, I need to think of picks. The thing is that I've been happy. I mean, I'm happy with lots of things. I have lots of tools that I use all the time. But one app that I've really come to like more, and I've been using it for about 6 months, is the Things app for Mac OS and iOS. The downside is you have to really buy into iOS and Mac OS to make use of it. But it's a really great to-do management, task management app. Like it's really simple but powerful. Like it manages the power in a nice way without becoming complicated or overwhelming. But I found it to be it matches my mental model for how I'd like to plan my time. And so I found that to be a great tool to use. So and it costs money too. So, but it's worth it. And actually, there may be a trial version of it. I'm not sure, but it's a great Mac and iOS app. And Victor uses it too. I think he switched to iPhone. I think a large part so he could use the Things app on his phone instead of his Android phone. So that could tell you how good of an app it is.
Cool. I'm going to jump in here with a few picks as well. I've been playing with all kinds of stuff lately, and one of the things that I've really been liking is the Apple AirPods. I've been wearing them for the last few weeks. I got some when I was at CES, just so that I'd have something to compare it to, because I got a couple of other pairs of wireless headphones I wanted. People are like, well, how does it compare to those? And I didn't have any, so I got some, and I'm really, really liking them. So I'm going to pick that. And then, I just overall.
What do you like about them? Is it the sound quality or just the convenience of connectivity?
The sound quality is nice. I like that I can walk across the room without being tied to my phone. I mean, you can't go too terribly far, but I can cross a large room, and they'll still work just fine. The call quality on them is pretty darn good. And the only issue that I really have with them is when I try and switch from one device to another. So, like, I was watching a show on my iPad, and then I switched it back over to my my phone so I could listen to a podcast, and it kind of had some issues there the last time I did it. But usually that works somewhat smoothly. And I love that you can just put them in the case, open it up next to your iPhone, and it says, "Oh, I found your AirPods." So you don't have to go through the pairing rigmarole and all that garbage.
Cool. I actually been thinking about getting a pair. So it's because I've got these Bose headphones, which are awesome for sitting at my desk, but there are lots of times when earbuds are much better. Yeah.
Well, these ones sit in your ear. They don't go into your ear canal. The other two pair that I have that I'm going to be trying, one I used for a while, were the Broggy Pro headphones, and they cost a little bit more than the AirPods. And the other one that I haven't opened up yet are from Crazy Baby, and they're their Pro version. They're supposed to be waterproof, and so I'm going to take them swimming and see how that works. But anyway, the Broggies and these Crazy Baby ones insert into your ear canal. And so if that bothers you, then they're probably a non-starter, where the AirPods, if your ear's shaped the right way, and most people's are shaped close enough to where you can just set the AirPods in your ear like you do with your regular earbuds that you get with your iPhone. So so that's been kind of nice. But yeah, I don't mind terribly sticking them in my ear canal. I did figure out that I need to get foam tips. I had to order my own tips for the ones that go in your ear. And the ear canal on one side is bigger than the ear canal on the other side. And so you think, I put the same color pair on both sides, and I can do that, but then one side's falling out. So, anyway, but the ear insertion ones, the nice thing about those is that you don't have to turn them up as loud to drown out the world around you, because they're inserted into your ear canal. The Broggies also, they had a much, much wider range of gestures you can do with them. And so, you can tap them, you can swipe up to turn it up, swipe down to turn it down. You can double tap your cheek, and it'll call on Siri. Do
the AirPods have any controls built in?
They do. So by default, if you double tap the right AirPod, it will bring up Siri, and then you can configure the left one to do something different. So I have that as play pause.
Oh, I see. Cool.
But that's it. So you don't have any volume controls or anything on it, which I kind of miss. The other nice thing about the Broggies is they have a gesture where you shake your head. And so if you're getting a phone call and you don't want to answer it, you pull out your phone and it's a number you don't recognize, you just shake your head and it'll disconnect the call. So that's nice. It only does it when it's ringing, obviously. If you're talking to somebody on the phone, you shake your head, it's not going to hang up on them.
So you've done lots of research. Are you going to do a full write-up on comparison of
I'm probably going to do a video on YouTube and then, do a write-up on them. But
cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty gratified about some of the things that I've been getting that I get to try out. Another one that's also really cool, and I think I've picked this on a previous show, but what the hey, right? There's a company out there called Astro Reality, and they do augmented virtual reality kind of thing on your phone, and they actually sell you models of the moon or models of like the planets in the solar system. And so you turn on their app on your phone and point it at the model, and it gives you all kinds of information about the planet that you've got sitting in front of you. So my son, my 12-year-old's homeschooled, and my wife is essentially going to rearrange his science lessons so that he does the solar system before I have to send them back. Because, mine are review copies. I don't get to keep them. I get to keep the moon because I got those at a different conference. And I have the Lunar Pro, which is the really big one. And it shows you all the moon landing sites. It shows you geography on the moon. On the moon landing sites, you can play all the videos of all the moon landings. You can look at photographs that the different lunar landers took. They have all the information about all of the landing sites and all of that stuff, so you can really see it on the moon. It's really cool. So, I've got review units of all of those. Some of the stuff that I saw, it wasn't that super exciting, and some of it was. So, there were some connected devices like connected safes and connected cookers. So, they're sending me review units of those, but all it really does is you get to learn on your phone when the sous vide's been on for 8 hours, right? Or however long you set it for. And you can turn it on and off over the internet, which is nice, but, and you can change the temperature and all that, obviously, but, it's like, okay, that's interesting, but not critically interesting. The same thing with the safe. I can open the safe from here. If it's connected to Wi-Fi, they just have to push a button to turn it on, and then I can on my phone say and open.
You better really trust their security if you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that with that one, if nobody touches it for a while, it just turns itself off, and so somebody has to be there and hit a button to turn it on, so that it'll connect, so that you can open it. So it's got some built-in security that way. But anyway, just interesting stuff. Anyway, cool. If people want to hire Narwhal or watch and see what you're doing these days, where do they go?
They should go to nrwl.io. So it's like narwhal, but remove the vowels and the H.
Yep.
So 4 letters. Also, we blog a lot at blog.nrwl.io about a lot of Angular stuff and X-related stuff. Bazel, the new build tool that Google's open source, and we're pretty big fans of. So yeah, those are good places. Twitter as well. We're on nrwl_io. I think you could probably search for Narwhal Angular if you don't want to remember how we spell it. It'll probably show up. And my personal Twitter is Jeff B. Cross. And so I think I'm a pretty good person to follow on Twitter. I keep it pretty focused on Angular stuff, and only every once in a while I tweet some stupid joke that no one appreciates. But other than that, I think I'm a pretty good account.
Good deal. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for coming, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. We will wrap this up, and we'll come back at you next week with another Angular story.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CacheFly.com to learn more.